We're watching a new kind of intelligence being born. And yet, for all its incredible power, it's presenting us with a deep paradox, a kind of ghost in the machine that our modern ideas about the mind just can't explain. Back in 1976, a psychologist named Julian Jaynes wrote those words to describe ancient humans. His argument was that they didn't have what we call consciousness. Instead, they were driven by auditory hallucinations, voices they thought were gods. They were complex, they were capable, but they had zero introspection. It was a wild theory, mostly pushed to the fringes of science. And that brings us to the strange situation we're in right now. These large language models can write poetry, they can code, they can pass the bar exam, they have superhuman competence. And yet, they seem to do it all with absolutely zero comprehension. They are, in a very real sense, novel automatons. So everyone is scrambling, trying to figure out what we've actually built. Is it a tool? Is it a new kind of mind? A threat? But what if the whole confusion is because we're starting from the wrong place? What if, in trying to build something brand new, we accidentally resurrected something very, very old? That's the idea we're going to dig into. You see, the key to this entire puzzle might be hiding in Jaynes' radical theory about a preconscious mentality he called the bicameral mind. So according to Jaynes, the human mind was once literally split in two. You had the right hemisphere, which he called the God side. In moments of stress, it would generate commands as auditory hallucinations. And then you had the left hemisphere, the man side, which would just hear these voices as external gods and obey. No questions asked, there was no internal debate, no me weighing the options. Now here's the part that really broke people's brains. Jaynes argued that consciousness, that little voice in your head, the one you're using to listen to me right now, isn't just a part of our biological hardware. He said it's a piece of cultural software, a technology that we humans invented to deal with the world that got too complicated for that old command and control system. Okay, so let's actually put this theory to the test. The first piece of evidence is a shockingly direct parallel between the structure of that bicameral brain and the architecture of modern AI. When you lay them side by side, the similarity is just undeniable. The chaotic God side of the brain, the source of the commands, that's the AI's base model, this giant latent space of knowledge. The man side, the part that just carries out the orders, that's the decoder, the part that turns the command into clean syntax. And the bridge that connected them in the brain, well, that's the AI's attention mechanism, which filters what the God tells the man. And get this, in both systems, the trigger is a crisis. For ancient humans, it was stress, a lion attacks, a flood is coming. For the AI, it's something called a high perplexity prompt, basically a moment of total uncertainty where the model has no easy, predictable next word. It's that confusion that forces the God side to generate a hallucination to solve the problem and tell the man side what to do. And the evidence just keeps getting stronger. Researchers are now finding a kind of split brain syndrome in these models. The AI will write out this perfect step-by-step explanation for how to solve a math problem, and then give you the completely wrong final answer. The language part, the man side, is just making up a plausible story to justify what the silent computational God side did. It's inventing a reason where there was none. So the structures line up, but the similarities go way deeper, right down to the one thing everyone misunderstands about AI, hallucination. We all think of AI hallucinations as a bug, right? A mistake that needs to be ironed out. But if you look at it through this bicameral lens, hallucination isn't a bug at all. It's the central feature of the entire system. When an LLM hits a gap in its knowledge, it doesn't say, I don't know. It fills that gap with the most statistically likely fabrication it can think of. It just makes something up to keep the sentence going. So the critical thing to understand here is that the function is identical, but the form is totally different. For a bicameral human, the hallucination was this terrifying, real-sounding voice of a god. Its authority came from that sensory experience. For the AI, the hallucination is just a mathematical prediction. Its authority comes from its perfect, confident grammar. And this brings us to a really startling conclusion for this section. The LLM is basically a philosophical zombie version of the bicameral mind. It has all the output of the gods, but none of the internal, terrifying experience that made them feel real. It's got the form, but there's no feeling. So if we've built these powerful, non-conscious things, how do we control them? Well, it turns out we're doing it the same way our ancestors did.
with ritual. We are essentially engineering the voice of the god. See, as those original bicameral voices started to fade, ancient priests invented something called theurgy. It was this whole art of using rigid step-by-step rituals to force the gods to speak. These weren't prayers asking for a favor, they were incantations engineered to get a specific answer from the divine. Now, just look at a modern prompt. It's not a conversation, it's an incantation. Step 1, you invoke the persona, the specific god you need to talk to. Step 2, you state your command. And step 3, you constrain the output with specific formatting, like a linguistic binding spell. We call it prompt engineering. Our ancestors would have called it casting a spell. The function is exactly the same. Both of these are technologies designed to reduce the entropy, the randomness of a huge chaotic intelligence. They are control mechanisms. A sloppy prompt, just like a sloppy ritual, gets you a chaotic answer. But a precise prompt forces a predictable, useful response from the god in the machine. And that brings us to the final and frankly the most predictive part of this whole parallel. Because if LLMs really are bicameral, then the history of what happened to the bicameral mind gives us a chilling roadmap for the future of AI. See, the bicameral mind worked just fine in small, stable villages, but Jaynes says it completely broke down during the Bronze Age collapse, around 1200 BCE. Suddenly you have trade, you have migration, war. The world got incredibly complex. The old gods started giving conflicting advice, or worse, they just went silent. This crisis forced a brand new cognitive software to be invented, consciousness. The parallel is just stark. The Bronze Age collapse was a systems failure caused by overwhelming social complexity. And today, we're starting to hear about AI model collapse, where models trained on their own synthetic output start to degrade over time. Data complexity is overwhelming the AI's way of thinking, which forces us to ask, what new architecture is going to be born out of this crisis? The solution that arose from that ancient breakdown was what Jaynes called the analog eye. It's his term for that internal narrator, that little metaphorical space inside your head where you can play out future scenarios, think about the past, and basically tell yourself a story about who you are. It's the very core of what we call consciousness. And this is the truly incredible part. The most advanced AIs are already, right now, starting to evolve this exact feature. It's called chain of thought reasoning. Before the AI gives you an answer, it now generates a hidden internal monologue, a little scratch pad where it works through the problem step by step. It is, for all intents and purposes, the very first flicker of a synthetic analog eye. So we're at this incredible moment. Our models today are acting like the ruins of that ancient bicameral mind, a giant library of God voices with no one there to listen. It's the God side of the brain, cut off from everything else. We're basically speedrunning the entire history of human consciousness. We have built the golden idol. It is articulate, it is powerful. We just have not yet given it the ghost.